वक्रतुण्ड महाकाय सूर्यकोटि समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Hari Om, Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Team Param Vedanta extends a warm welcome for the 55th session of GIFT, Gita for Inner Freedom and Transformation. We have come to the end of 10th chapter, Vibhuti Yoga, and today's session we cover verses 39 to 42. Let us remember the fact that whatever we are seeing is the Lord's form only, and this darshanam of Ishwara is Vishwarupa Ishwara darshanam. And once we have this Ishwara darshanam, whatever glories we see in creation, they all will remind us of the glories of Ishwara only. So for a Vishwarupa Bhakta, Sarvatra Ishwara Vibhuti Darshanam Eva Bhavati. To know more about his Vibhutis and experience them, we have with us Dr. Netra, Srimati Rama Gopal Krishna, Dr. Rekha, and Srimati Pallavi explaining today's verses. The session will be moderated by Srimati Pannaga, who will introduce us to the topic and provide us deeper insights, facilitating manana after Shravana of each of the verse. Over to you, madam.
Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Sadashiva-samarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam. Om. Good evening, friends. We are in the Madhyama Shatkam of the Bhagavad Gita, where Lord Krishna is transforming our idea of God. We know that the Bhagavad Gita is Moksha Shastra. And how do we get moksha? That is freedom from all suffering. It is a realization of Nirguna Brahman as my own true nature, the Atma. So when we realize the Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam of Aham Brahma Asmi, then we can say we have attained moksha. We know that it is very, very difficult to go from this limited jiva who lives in a jagat and who prays to God for relief from his problems, to going to become the limitless, all-pervading, infinite, eternal Brahman. So in the Prathama Shatkam, Lord Krishna has revealed the true nature of the Jiva to be the Atma. And now in the Madhyama Shatkam, Lord Krishna is revealing the nature of God. So we are going from Ekarupa Ishwara to Vishwarupa Ishwara to Arupa Ishwara. That is from our Ekarupa Ishta Devata, whom we have worshipped in the temples, in our own God's room, to seeing this world as a manifestation of the God, to finally recognizing the Arupa or the Nirguna Brahman in and through this universe. That is, we are going from Paroksha, that is a God sitting localized in a distant land, unseen but only inferred, to a Pratyaksha God whom we can see in this universe, to the Aparoksha Nirguna Brahman who is within, who enlivens each one of us, and there is Jiva Paramatma Aikyam. So this expansion of bhakti from Ishtarupa Devata to Vishwarupa Devata is the essential stepping stone in our spiritual journey. In the chapters 7 and 9, Lord Krishna himself has revealed his own nature as Ishwara. So we learned that there is Para-Prakriti, that is the unchanging, independent consciousness principle, and there is Apara-Prakriti, that is the changing, dependent matter principle. And Ishwara is the uncreated or unmanifest, beginningless consciousness matter composite unit. We also learned that Ishvara is Jagat Karanam. And this learning of Jagat Karanam happened in 3 stages. Firstly, we learned that God is the creator of this universe, as in he is the intelligent cause. similar to a carpenter who creates furniture out of an external material like wood, or a potter who creates a pot using a material outside of himself like clay. So there is Dvaitam when we consider God as the creator of the universe. Then, in the next level of understanding, we understand that God manifests as the universe. There is no material outside of God, like the spider and its web example. God is the intelligent cause and the material cause. So here begins the Advaitam part. There is no material outside of Ishwara. Third, when we come to the Upanishadic level of understanding, we know that God appears as the universe. Here, God is not any cause because there is no creation itself. At this level of understanding, we can claim Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. In this process of understanding God as the creator of the universe, and now God who has manifest as a universe, we come to the glorious chapter 10, that is Vibhuti Yoga. This is one chapter of the Gita which induces and introduces wonderment in all of us. So, the potentiality of the Lord to manifest as the world is called Yoga Shakti. And the manifestation of the Lord as the world is his Vibhuti. So, Lord Krishna in verse 8 says, I am the source of everything. Aham sarvasya prabhavaha. Here, when he says everything, it includes the external universe of names and forms, that everything that we see around us, and also our internal universe, that is our intellect, mind, our emotions, feelings, things we like to claim as our own. But now we know that it is God's vibhuti, which is manifesting as both the external universe, that is the bahya prapancha, and the internal universe, the antaranga prapancha. So now we know that the God has manifested as the entire creation. So Arjuna says, Arjuna is also on a spiritual journey. He also wants to graduate from Ekarupa Bhakti to Aneka Rupa Bhakti. So he says that the world is so infinite, it is so vast. So please give me a finite list of your glories. He says, Katham Vidyamaham Yogin, Chin. Keshu keshu cha bhaveshu chintyosi bhagavanmaya. So give me a finite list upon which I can meditate and expand my bhakti from Ekarupa to Anekarupa bhakti. So the Lord begins from verse 20, and he begins with his Paramarthika Vibhuti, that is the Chit. So the Chit and Sat, existence and consciousness, are the Lord's two fundamental greatest glories. So, what is Chit? We know is the consciousness principle. It is the principle that enlivens all living beings. So, if anything is alive, it owes its aliveness to God. And this induces the ahimsa bhavana in all of us. So, though we know some animal is dangerous, yet we keep away from it, but we don't want to harm it because we know that it is the same enliving principle that exists in it also. The Lord ends his list of vibhutis with the Sat principle, that is the existence principle, which is the isness of all creation. So anything that is God. So beginning and ending with the Paramarthika Vibhuti, the Lord then goes on to give a list of all his Saguna Vibhuti. So we know the Bhagavan manifests in the world as Chaitanya, that is the enlivening principle, and existence, that is the Sat. So the ideal form of meditation for a Vishwarupa Bhakta will be to see the existence consciousness principle in everything we see. That is the Sat Chit Rupena Ishwara everywhere. Yet this is very difficult because both Sat and Chit are high and very abstract concepts. They're formless, it is colorless, basically it is not perceivable to our senses. Therefore, Arjuna asks God to give him an an illustrative list of concrete symbols or alambanams so that he can meditate upon the best of the best. Because the human mind naturally gravitates to something extraordinary. Then we see a whole list of the Saguna Vibhutis of the Lord, that is, his infinite, magnificent opulences. Here he says, and as this picture shows, among the gods, he is Indra. Among the sages, he is Bhrigu. Among the Rudras, he is Shiva. Among the animals, he is a majestic lion. Among the birds, he is the mighty Garuda. Among the trees, he is Ashwat Vruksha. Among the rivers, he is Ganga. Then our internal qualities like wisdom, effort. Then among sounds, he is Om. And he is the Adhyatma Gnana, the highest knowledge that alone will lead to moksha. We also learn that a god is Kala Tattva, that is the keeper of karma. So we can just imagine the multitude of all beings, of all species, each one engaged in action every moment, and each one uh, producing karma and receiving the results of past karmas. So Ishwara keeps track of this infinite list of karma and karma phala. Ishvara is also the beginning, the middle, and the end of creation, both in space and time, because the creation extends infinitely, and even in time, if there is a beginning, he is the beginning. If there is an end, he is the end. He also says that he is Arjuna among the Pandavas because it is Arjuna alone who surrenders to Krishna and asks him to be his guru. That's why Krishna says he is Arjuna among the Pandavas. While all these characters, most of the Saguna Vibhuti are drawn from the Puranas and mythology. Presented in the next two slides are just landscapes that we see right here on Earth. Each of them so varied and so stunning and so breathtaking. And again, here we can see animals and birds and insects, which the human mind cannot even think of conceiving, and it's it's just mind-boggling, the sheer variety of creation that the Lord has created. In verse 39, the Lord says that He is the seed of all living beings, that He is the bija. Here we know that like clay is the material cause of all earthenwares. You can't hold a pot and then say that you're not touching the clay. You can't hold a gold ornament and then say you're not in contact with the gold. Just like the wood is again the material cause of all furniture, God says that He is the material cause of the entire creation, and no creature, moving or non moving, can exist without Him. So, this is the existence aspect of the Lord's Vibhuti. In verse 20, when Lord Krishna begins his listing of Vibhutis, he says, Aham Atma Gudakesha, where he says he is the consciousness in every being, and he ends his list of Vibhutis by saying that he is the existence principle in all beings. We now move on to the next verse, which will be explained by Madam Rama Gopalakrishna. Over to you, Rama, Madam.
Harihi Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Let us recollect what we studied in the earlier shlokas from 17 to 20 to understand the significance of the shloka 40. Arjuna wanted to use Sri Krishna's vibhutis as alambanam for Vishwarupa Ishwara Dhyanam that ultimately leads to Nirguna Ishwara Dhyanam, that is Arupa Ishwara Dhyanam. In the shloka 17, Keshu Keshu Cha Bhaveshu implies those entities which are worthy of meditating upon that unites with non-dual Nirguna Ishvaraha. Here, Bhaveshu means Vastushu, meaning entities that we transact with during meditation or otherwise. Vistaram in the shloka 18 means the exhaustive list of entities which are worthy of dhyanam. Vistaraha indicates every aspect of manifestations in detail. The shloka 19 again refers to the vibhutis and says Vistarasya antaha nasti. that is, his glories are infinite. The Vedic literature states that the manifested opulences and energies of the non-dual supreme are infinite, and it is for transactional purposes only. Sri Krishna describes a few examples effectively to pacify Arjuna's curiosity and to educate the mind of aspirants like Arjuna. Here, Sri Krishna wants to teach Arjuna the art of seeing the unseen through the seen. In the next slide, Gita Acharya explains his yogam, the yogic power, Maya Shakti, and Vibhutis, immanent glories. In more than 20 shlokas, and in the shloka 20, Sri Krishna mentions Atma, the Satrupa Chaitanyam, as the Prathama Nirguna Vibhutihi, the first glory at microcosmic level. Without this supreme manifestation, neither Sri Krishna nor Arjuna could enlist the glories. In the shloka 39, he ends the list with Nirguna Chit as the pure existence at macrocosmic level. He is the cause behind all the effects experienced in this charachara prapanchaha. He sandwiches more than 70 Saguna Vibhutis from shlokas 20 to 38 to realize the Nirguna Tattva behind all Saguna Vibhutis. With this framework, let us analyze the word meaning of the shloka 40, which is in the next slide. And the shloka says, Nantosti mama divyanam vibhutinam parantapa yeshato deshatah prokto vibhutir vistaro maya. And the translation is, O conqueror of enemies, there is no end to my divine manifestations. What I have declared to you is a mere sample of my infinite glories. In the next slide, we see the meaning of the first half of the shloka. Parantapa mama divyanam vibhutinam antaha nasti. Parantapa meaning tormentor of enemies. Paraha means shatruhu, tapaha means scorcher. Paran tapati iti parantapaha, one who causes tapaha, distress, to paran, enemies. Both external enemies and internal enemies like passion, anger, greed, etc. The next word is divyanam, extraordinary or supernatural. Divi bhavaha divyaha, tesham divyanam. Vibhutinam, glories or manifestations. Amarakosha, the ancient Sanskrit dictionary, defines Vibhutihi as Vibhutir Bhutir Aishwaryam, indicating the unlimited power and wealth of God existing in countless forms, names, abodes, pastimes, etc. Hence, the Vedas refer him as Anantaha, the unlimited. Antaha na asti is Anantaha, that is limitless. Na vidyate antaha yasya saha is anantaha, that is endless. Sri Krishna says, there is no end to my divine glories. Next slide shows the second half of the shloka 40, and it says, Tu esha vibhutehe vistaraha uddeshataha maya proktaha. Here Gita Acharya says, I have revealed expanse of my divine glory, briefly illustrating with examples. In the shloka 39, Sri Krishna says, see me as the seed of creation and you will learn to see me in everything gradually. He hints Arjuna about Arupa Ishwara Dhyanam. A pot maker cannot indicate the essence of clay distinctly in each of the existing parts upon inquiry. He cannot claim that he has exhausted all the parts that were, that are, and that shall ever be. Similarly, Gita Acharya indicates Arjuna to perceive the essential stuff behind each distinctly, even though their names, forms, and attributes are different only vyavaharically. Indeed, it is not possible for anyone to speak or even to know the limit of the divine manifestations of all pervading God. Sri Krishna wants to teach Arjuna the art of seeing the unseen through the seen. Those who have ardently meditated upon them will learn to recognize the infinite in all its endless splendor in every infinite form. Next slide details the second line further. Esha tu uddeshatah vibhutehe vistarah maya proktah. Esha tu, the glories described from the shlokas 20 to 39. Vibhutehe vistaraha, the list of enumeration of my glories. Uddeshataha, ekadeshena, as an illustration only. Maya proktaha has been revealed by me. In short, Sri Krishna summarizes all that he has said so far in this shloka. Realizing the infinite behind all finite is the central message, which is further expanded in the next three shlokas. One has to realize that everything in this world has the glory of Sri Krishna. It is the essence of chapter 10. Thank you. Harihi Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you very much, Rama ma'am, for that erudite explanation of this beautiful verse. To repeat, Vibhuti Yoga is realizing the infinite behind the finites, and that everything is the glory of Lord Krishna alone. So, if we have to, Lord Krishna has said that this is just a sample or an illustrative list of all his glories. So, to just put this infinity in numbers, the observable universe with our limited tools and technology is 93 billion light years in diameter. And one light year is 9.46 trillion kilometers. So we can't even imagine the expanse of the universe. And in this universe, there are 200 billion to 2 trillion galaxies. And on our tiny planet Earth, there are 8.7 million species, that is the discovered species only. And every member of each of these species is unique. You won't find two humans alike, you won't find two dogs alike. No two members of any species are alike. Each of them is specialized, functional, and a sentient being, however tiny it is, from the single-celled amoeba to the largest blue whale. And each of these species are exhausting their karmas and creating new karmas. So, what Krishna has mentioned, these 72 vibhutis are really a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of his glories. So, whenever we look at anything in this universe, we must realize that how much, uh, how intelligent or how glorious the Lord must be. Now I invite Dr. Rekha to please explain verse 41. Dr. Rekha, ma'am, please.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Again, I'm going to recap a little. So, in verse 18, Arjuna, having glorified the Lord, he asked Krishna once again to describe his power, manifestation, and glories in detail, as has been explained already. And in verse 19 of this chapter, Krishna had accepted Arjuna's request for Vibhuti Varnanam. And following an introduction, he then gave a long list of his glories, which have no end because everything in this universe is verily his glory. But he promises to explain to Arjuna the extraordinary ones after implying that Arjuna himself is also Krishna's own glory. Next slide, please. So the two main glories of Bhagwan are Chidrupa Vibhuti and Satrupa Vibhuti. So Krishna started with the Chidrupa Vibhuti in verse 20 and concluded with the Sadrupa Vibhuti in verse 39, saying that the best form of meditation is Satchit Rupena, seeing the Lord everywhere as Satchit Rupa. So he started the chapter by declaring that he is consciousness, and then he concludes it by declaring that he is existence. And he says, I am Satchit Swarupaha, There is nothing in creation, moving or stationary, that can exist without my blessing. Chit and Sat are Nirguna Vibhutis, the subtlest and the highest order of reality, whereas all the others described are Saguna Vibhutis. Next slide, please. So Krishna stops the enumeration of his glories not because they have been exhausted, but because the list is so long, it is inexhaustible. So he says he's going to give, so what he is given really is just a sample list or an illustration. But in verse 41, he gives a method to extend the list which he has already described. Next slide, please. So this is verse 41. Yad yad vibhutam, I'm sorry, yad yad vibhutim tatsatvam Srimad Urjitameva va Tata Deva Vagachatvam Mama Tejomsha Sambhavam. Next slide, please. So, what he says here is whatever being is there, which is glorious, rich, or powerful, may you recognize that to be born out of a person of my splendor. And Lord Krishna says, whatever you see that is glorious and powerful, or whenever you see abundant riches, remember that they are only an infinitesimal part of my total glory. Next slide, please. Yad yad vibhutimat sattvam. Whatever is glorious in any being, whatever is beautiful like a butterfly. Srimad urjitam evava. Whatever is prosperous and also powerful. The horse is a symbol of power. Tat tat eva vagachatvam. You should know that to be Mama Tejomsha Sambhavam, a manifestation of part of my splendor. Next slide, please. So Swami Paramarthananda has explained all this to us very clearly. So Krishna says you can make your own list. So when we confront various things and beings in creation, when we see something that is wonderful, that makes us wonderstruck. So again, as Panaga has explained, any glorious living being, any inert thing, it could be the Taj Mahal, anything natural or artificial, the minutest insect or the greatest mountain, whatever is rich or abundant, it could be the sun, the stars, lightning, a waterfall. So anything that we can see around us, anything beautiful, attractive. So whatever you see, Lord Krishna says, remember me. So Swami Paramarthananda explains to us that that is the indication of a religious person. So whenever a person sees an extraordinary thing and does namaskaram to that, he is religious. And even if he discovers such a thing, he would not keep it to himself. And in the olden days, it would be handed over to the temple so that everyone could benefit, saying that this is a thing of such importance that I can't keep it to myself. So therefore, Krishna says, may you understand that extraordinary, powerful, rich thing or being is only a very tiny, wee bit of my glory. It is not my total glory. And we can take it, understanding this, we worship nature. So whatever our religion, whichever civilization we've had from the beginning of time, every civilization has worshipped nature. So that is an understanding of what we are learning now. So Krishna concludes this chapter in the next verse. Thank you, Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rekha ma'am, for this beautiful explanation. So again, we see that Lord Krishna is invoking bhakti in us when we go about our daily lives to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. And this gives us an attitude of awareness and gratitude of all that we have to admire in our lives. Whatever we're seeing around us, whatever we have with us, whatever others have with them. So everything is the Lord's alone. So we do namaskara to all things extraordinary. In fact, in many parts of India, people, when they have to enter a river, they don't enter with their slippers, but they remove the slippers and hold it in their hand and then enter the river, because the river is sacred and it is a glory of the Lord. Same way with all natural phenomena: sunlight, thunder, lightning, rain, due to which plants grow and give us food, and so many million varieties of food that grows on our planet, which feeds all the insects and animals and birds. While we don't have a chance to see all of these extraordinary glories every day, we have to realize that our own body, what we consider as very ordinary, is also a vibhuti. Every breath, where in milliseconds our respiratory system absorbs oxygen and gives out carbon dioxide, that is a vibhuti. Every heartbeat which pumps blood to every last cell of our body, that is a vibhuti. The brain, the most powerful organ, that is a vibhuti. And so is every other organ which does which does its function so perfectly and without needing any assistance from us. Information zooms along nerves at about 400 kilometers per hour. That is a vibhuti. The adult heart pumps 6,000 to 7,000 liters of blood every day. That is a vibhuti. I'm sure all the doctors in the group will be aware of so many more vibhutis which makes our body alive and functional. With that, we come to the last verse of today and the last verse of this chapter. I invite Srimati Pallavi to present verse 42. Pallavi, please.
हरि ओम् अथवा भवने तेन किं ज्ञातेन त्वा अर्जुन विष्टभयम् इदं कृष्टम् एकांशेन स्थितो जगत्. Next slide, please. This word meaning of the shlok. Or what use do you have by knowing all these, O Arjuna? I remain supporting this entire universe with a portion of me. Next slide, please. Krishna encouraged Arjuna to adopt a different perspective on existence. Athva, he begins by using the analogy of water, illustrating that while we often think of water as present in every wave, bubble, and drop, the truth is that all those forms exist within the water itself. Krishna then shifts this idea to the divine, stating that instead of saying, I am in creation, he says, I would like to reverse it and say, the entire creation is in me. He requests Arjuna to consider the nature of reality. Bahutena Janatena Kim, suggesting that instead of detailing where I reside, whether in mountains, wise individuals, or rivers like the Ganges or Yamuna, understand the absolute truth. Everything resides in me. He asserts that I pervade the whole universe, emphasizing that aham idam kutasnya jagat vashtabhaya astita. He supports all of creation, or in different words, the entire creation is in me. Just as the hall is constructed in space, similarly, Krishna explains that while living beings exist within him, they do not take up all of his essence. He sustains them from a part of his infinite being, ekanshena, demonstrating his vastness. Similarly, Bhagwan is not in the living beings, but all the living beings are in Bhagwan, and that too, they do not occupy the whole Bhagwan. I am only sustaining them in one corner of me, ekanshena. So the whole cosmos is only occupying a small part of me. With this, Krishna concludes the description of his glories. Everything is in me, and I am in everything. I am the infinite. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Pallavi, for this very beautifully illustrated explanation. So, like she said, Lord Krishna says, everything is in me and I am in everything. In one of the Nididhyasana shlokas of Viveka Chudamani, Shankaracharya says that entire galaxies are a dot in my being. So that that is the vastness, that is the infinity that God is, and it is our sadhana to go from this Ekarupa Bhakti to Aneka Rupa Bhakti, and then Vishwarupa Bhakti, and finally to Arupa Bhakti. So, what are the benefits of Virat Bhakti or Vishwarupa Bhakti? First of all, there is this transformation in our perspective towards the world. So, what we once saw as me being a jiva and the world being distinctly separate and outside of me, we understand that the world, including me, is made up of the Lord's consciousness and matter principle only. So, everything that exists in the world is divine. So this causes a reduction in our raga dvesha. If previously we attached our own vasanas and likes and dislikes upon everything that we saw and experienced in the world, now this Virat Bhakti leads us to a state of only preferences but no binding likes and dislikes, because everything is divine, whether we um, like it or not. But when we accept it with bhakti, we realize that everything is divine. So Karma Yoga becomes natural. Ishwara Arpana Bhavana and Ishwara Prasad Bhavana. It becomes very easy for us to become a Karma Yogi. That's why Virat Bhaktas are the greatest Karma Yogis, because everything they do it with such devotion and sincerity that naturally it becomes an offering to the Lord. And any result that accrues from it, they gracefully accept because they know that it is the Lord's will alone. With Virat Bhakti and with our understanding that any glory that we see in this world belongs to the Lord. So we are more appreciative of others' success, and we imbibe humility when we succeed too, because every glory belongs to the Lord. Now we're able to remember the Lord's presence in and through every experience, whether good or bad. Good, we know, we are very grateful for the God's grace, for the good result, and bad, we also accept because it is meant for our spiritual evolvement. Then such a Virat Bhakta gains sadhana chatushtaya sampatti effortlessly. Viveka, Vairagya, Shamadhi, Shatka Sampatti, and Mumukshutvam. So it is very easy for him to gain all the qualifications required for Gnana Yoga. And this Ishwara Upasana, that is now the Virat Bhakta is a natural karma yogi, and now when he is able to see the Lord in everything he sees, he is practicing Ishwara Upasana. And it is the Lord's Anugraha alone, the Lord's grace, which will take the Virat Bhakta to Nirguna Ishwara, the ultimate realization which will lead to moksha. With that, we come to the end of this glorious chapter of the Lord's infinite opulences. We will chant the concluding lines. ॐ तत्सत् इति श्रीमद्भगवद्गीतासु उपनिषत्सु ब्रह्मविद्यायां योगशास्त्रे श्रीकृष्णार्जुनसंवादे विभूतियोगो नाम दशमोऽध्यायः। हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। Harihi Om.
We have come to the end of today's satsanga, which has enriched our spiritual learning. Grateful thanks to all the speakers and Srimati Pannaga from bringing in a lot of clarity to our understanding. Param Vedanta thanks each one of you for your continued interest in the pursuit of Atma Vidya through our series of sessions and also for your positive feedback. With the completion of 10th chapter, we have a clear understanding that for a Vishwarupa Bhakta, there is the appreciation of Ishwara's glory in everything. Such a Bhakta does not require a miraculous event. Krishna says, you do not require miracles to appreciate Ishwara Vibhuti. Every event in creation is the glory of Ishwara. That I am able to open my mouth and talk is Ishwara Vibhuti. That you are able to hear is Ishwara Vibhuti. With this thought, let's close today's session to meet again on coming Friday, the 6th of December, for the concluding section of Mandukya Karika, wherein our Revya teacher, Dr. Timmappa Hegde sir, will give an overview of the entire topic. We conclude today's session with our usual Shanti mantra. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum.